Today we're going to go over the top 10 features that need to return in Halo 6. Many of us have a generalized idea on how difficult and challenging it can be to create a game from the ground up. I think it's why many of us don't do it. We just use tools to create games, like Forge, for example. Now, in this case, all we can really do here is speak our minds if we don't know how to create games, or if we're not working at 343, and we can only hope that some of our request breaks through the communication barriers between us as fans and the developers. In the case of Halo and 343, I think we're in a pretty good spot compared to many games, because with how much Halo 5 was influenced by previous requests, I think Halo 6 will also be the same. And also 343 realizes now that it's very important that they listen to what we have to say. So recently we asked you guys on Facebook and Twitter, our socials, be sure to follow if you haven't already, what you guys want in Halo 6. And we noticed something. 90% of the responses were to bring back something from the past, old features that have been forgotten of late. Obviously a big deal to the fans, we decided to pick 10 of these features to help respread and bring some of the conversations back to life towards hopefully getting a couple of these features in Halo 6. And yes, some of these are quite obvious, but until 343 delivers, let's bring these conversations up into the main stage. At number 10, a more serious tone, but really what I'm saying here is I think it needs a better execution. So this one's pretty quick and easy, let's go over it real quick. Halo 5 seemed to be trying to be a serious story, but it didn't really necessarily live up to those expectations. It had all the makings of a tense, galaxy-threatening issue, a truly intense sci-fi story. But the story failed to put it together in a way that felt right for a video game. Again, execution was poor, good concept though. Previous Halos excelled at just that though. We all know that the original stories were super simple and nothing that we didn't actually see before, but Halo made the cliche of alien invasion immensely emotional and powerful through great situational storytellings and mood settings. And sure, it's not the first time that was ever talked about in a movie or a video game before, but Halo did it differently in a sense. It executed it wonderfully and it made it awesome. You actually felt like you were reliving something that actually happened and not just a basic sci-fi story with stupid alien stuff. But the overall feel of Halo 5, in our opinion, was a very arcade-like one, and it didn't really help to set the tone of the Halo universe. I think many of us would agree on that. Too many brightly over colorful pieces and the really bad cheesy dialogue definitely did not help. A lot of things were predictable, just didn't work right. Basically a better story overall is a pretty fast and quick way to just saying that this story needs to be better executed. Great concepts, but the execution was poor, and they need to work on that. And I think that Halo 4 was a little bit lesser than Halo 5's story, and then Halo 5's story got a little bit better in my opinion, and then Halo 6, I think they're gonna finally know what they're doing for the most part. At number 9, face to face with the old enemies. For years now, fans have wondered why the hell half the enemies in the series that we grew up with in Halo just randomly disappeared from the games. I'm talking about the brutes, the drones, the skirmishers, the Foreigner AI, and even the Flood. And the lore excuse is that they returned to their homes, or they, quote, died off the Flood, or they became scattered and lost to space. But in reality, we all know that it wasn't really the lore that made them, pull away from the universe as much as was that 343's decision to, obviously. And it was probably due to a few factors. Luckily, I think that we can all agree that there was a 90% chance that the brutes returning were thanks to Atriox and his men making such a strong presence with Halo Wars 2. The Banish will more than likely be in Halo 6, which is fantastic. So at least we have that going for us, and since we already know Halo Wars 2 will have a big impact on Halo 6's story, already confirmed. But what about the others? Why can't there be an occasional swarm of drones or a random skirmisher scout once in a while? Why does it have to be like the Foreigner AI we fought in the first 3 games? Never existed. Thanks, Prometheans. And why is there zero presence of the Flood when we all still remember the random popcorn little guy teased in the Spirit of Fire? What was that all about? I guess that just kind of means nothing now. I mean, who knows? Halo 6 needs diversity with its enemies. In such a richly alive universe such as Halo, we should be able to see more of that in the games, and throwing in just a few old faces we used to smash with would be an absolute pleasant surprise in Halo 6. At number 8, full day 1 content, which means no day 1 DLC, basically. So I know that this issue is a much larger issue in the video game industry and not really secluded or isolated to Halo, although it may feel that way if you're a big Halo fan. Now, the thing about this is that I think that this is an issue that is infecting the whole video game industry, right? But it wasn't an accident that it happened to Halo 5 too, and the fact that it launched on launch day with lesser content than what every other Halo game has launched with compared to. It was 100% planned from the get-go. Bonnie Ross, in a pre-launch Halo 5 interview, stated that Halo was intended to be a service, so at that point you could tell something was up, right? But none of it thought of it would be a content wasteland that it was, of course, at first. Halo 5 was. So they wanted to make sure that it was a long-lasting, constantly throwing up new content service, something that was constantly updated to keep us playing, keep us interested in Halo, which it may have worked, but it's a really lousy way of doing it, honestly. But they screwed up big time, and not just including some long-time favorites at launch like BDB, Forge, and more social game modes, including Infection, which is just completely uncalled for. Infection, to a good amount of the Halo community, is what makes Halo Halo now. Ever since Halo 2 and Halo 3, that is what makes Halo to a lot of people, and that wasn't an accident, alright? In Halo 6, they should at least have the standard Halo content at launch and add more services later. And this just reeks of Microsoft, basically, of how they're running things, and I think that they should launch Halo complete and then add extra content on top. Fans will love that, fans will appreciate that the game did launch finished, that it did come to our expectations, and then there's extra free content as well. Or maybe charge us for that, but make it where everyone can play on the same maps, at least. At number 7, open worlds and maps. So Halo being known for massive open world environments in the past has left Halo 4 and 5 being criticized by many about how corridor-like and repetitive the campaign maps were, although I'd probably argue that Halo 1 and Halo 3 were very repetitive in themselves as well, but anyway, most of the gigantic semi-open worlds feel like they're kind of disappearing in Halo 4 and Halo 5. Most of the time, you always found yourself going through gigantic rectangle-shaped spaces, room after room, with very little geometry, by the way, with both sides being vertical set pieces that allowed you to get some vertical action that preached for Halo 5, but nonetheless, it was kind of repetitive. It was a valiant effort, I think, but overall, I think that, in my opinion, and as well as Jacob's, we just don't think it worked well. Fans love the wide-open worlds that we came to know from Halo. The multiplayer maps are not so much better at this. Yes, the game was made for competitive play, thus making the maps rather bland in order to get symmetrical and or fair. Some people love this style, and I think that it does have its own place, but not for every single map. There just isn't enough variety, basically, in all the maps, and in 5 years, it's likely that no one will remember any of the maps in Halo 5, at least the 343 Industries ones that made by them. Some people love this style, and I think that it does have a place in Halo. It's just that there's not enough variety. I don't think every map should be like a bunch of boxes stacked on top of each other. And in 5 years, I think it's very likely that no one will remember any maps made by 343 Industries. Maybe the Forge maps, but I don't think the ones made by the developer. Specifically, the BTB maps are all immensely small and overcrowded. Vehicles are usually ineffective, and you find yourself constantly in the middle of chaos since the maps are all medium-sized. Halo 6 will need to upscale its multiplayer maps if 343 wants to keep making the gameplay faster, and if they want more fun to be had in the game overall. At number 6, Playable Elites. Now this has been a personal, and also generally around the team, a big wish to happen in Halo 6 or any future Halo game, and I think it's actually just a desire of the community in general. But I think there's a couple fair reasons why Elite should come into this, into Halo 6, as Elites are almost as popular and as loved as the Spartans themselves. Although there are obvious technical issues with this, especially depending on how the game will actually work, so there might be a lack of Elite playability overall, although I think they should at least be playable in Forge and custom games. I think that's fair enough. So I think it is important to note that the most successful and famous Halo games of all time, Halo 2 and Halo 3, really focused and prided themselves on elite gameplay in both campaign and multiplayer, and especially since their Halo 2 and Halo 3 I think it's fair enough to say that playing as an elite is almost just as important as playing the game itself, because it's a part of what made Halo, Halo, with of course it being Halo 2 and Halo 3, and being such big aspects of those games. Those games certainly weren't negatively affected by playable elites, and I think it added a lot to it, so it bears to mind why they haven't got back to that since 343 took over. Personally, I believe playable elites fit best in the campaigns, as the Arbiter missions in Halo 2 were some of the best in the entire series, and the co-op player elites of Halo 3 gave a nice twist to the experience. It added a nice layer of new experiences without changing the actual gameplay within the campaigns at all. For multiplayer, it's a bit more interesting and maybe not as needed for future games, as I was saying earlier. However, the war game simulation and the actual lore of the elites occasionally training with the Spartans in these games begs to attention as to why they are not in the new multiplayer. Why not? Huh? The writing in the lore of Halo sets up for a big potential and space for these elites to be in the simulated war zone. So with all this considered, I think that the writing and the lore of Halo sets up for a great possibility of them being introduced, or at least reintroduced, into Halo 6. At number 5, classic customization. For Halo 6 to be any more loved than Halo 5, it's going to have to do one big thing, and that is to completely ditch the rec system. The random unlock trend is going to have to go away to favor of something that is much more in style of Halo's past. Actually, all of Halo's past. Something that is much more like that instead of this. The thing about the rec system is that we didn't really ask for it. It's just one of those things that were handed to us. We didn't really ask for a full torso body. It was so much more manageable and unique to us and each player if we could customize each part. So the rec system is one of those random things that the developers decided to throw at us and we had to accept. And you may like it, but again, it's not one of those things we really asked for, if you get my drift. Each Halo game has its positives towards customization, but for some reason, it seems like every new Halo game has to have a completely different style than the last. Instead of this, all a Halo game really needs to do is just get the best parts of those past Halo games and mutate it into something that's cool, not completely scrap what we did last and give us something new. You get the earnable features by ranking up in like Halo 3, and you could get the full detail customization in Halo Reach, for example. There is no need to try and stick with the trends to try something to get new players, when all you have to do is look at what made the previous game's customization so good. At number 4, Halo needs to be the FPS Campaign king again. So what did you think of Halo 5's campaign? Many people liked it, some people didn't. In fact, a lot of people didn't. From what we have seen around the community, you probably hated it or you thought it was just okay. Nothing special, right? And that is just the problem. Halo's campaign has been the best FPS story in many people's eyes since their very, first time onto the Halo ring back in Halo Combat Evolved. After Halo 5, I think the franchise really needs to reflect on where it is right now and compare itself to where it used to be. The previous Halo stories didn't have millions of dollars worth of false advertisements, like Hunt the Truth, which definitely helped people not hate the story any more than they needed to. They actually advertised back in the day what the story was going to be about without giving away spoilers, which what they did with Halo 5 was completely uncalled for. But all of this talk brings us to two main points for Halo 6's campaign. These points are very simple. Firstly, don't lie and, use false claims to build hype for the consumer. All that does is opens up people for a letdown or a misconception of what the game is going to actually be like. And secondly, not being an average FPS campaign experience would be ideal without actually screwing it up. And it's funny because actually at this point every FPS experience or campaign experience is trying to be so different that they actually kind of miss something that was so beautiful and simple back in the past. We need something that may be inordinary. In fact, that may be so inordinary it might actually be the most average thing you could think of, which is just a goddamn normal FPS game. Ideally, something good. We need to be emotionally wowed in Halo 6's campaign. Pretty much. At number 3, art style de-evolution. It is fair to say at this point that not many people are satisfied with the way Halo looks right now, visually. Although Halo Wars 2 does look very promising with its graphics, that's a completely different storyline though. It's not really the mainline story. And the thing about the mainline story is that the art style doesn't look too great. It just definitely doesn't look that good, and there are slim, memorable qualities to the graphics and art styles of Halo 5, if there is one at all. There have been plenty of videos made from us and other Halo YouTubers about the Halo art style, so we aren't going to keep hammering this topic and go into much detail, but there is still doubt that Halo needs to rethink its visual style for the future. At number 2, dual wielding. Why dual wielding has been out of Halo for almost 10 years is a bit baffling to I think anyone that realizes that. It's been out of Halo for almost 10 years. We're not talking about MCC, by the way, but just any new Halo game. So dual wielding has been a feature that was almost completely accepted and enjoyed by everyone, and it was just thrown away for no reason. Although I think I have an idea. Apparently it wasn't good for competitive play and weapon balance, although it's kind of funny if you think about that, if that is true, in which I think that it is. There's enough evidence pointing to that 343 is trying to bring in new fans, yet they get rid of features that would have helped the new fans like the game. But anyway, this one, even though it's at number 2, I think is sort of nitpicking, and it's not completely necessary. However, I think that 343 could easily add dual wielding back in a Halo if they just have weapons in set. So one weapon could only be combined with the same of its weapons so that it would work better. Although that does bring up some issues, I think if they just used Halo 3 as some reference, then it would work perfectly. At number 1, you probably guessed it, split screen. This one's pretty obvious here, but there has been tons of talk about this controversial change that is new to Halo, which I think a lot of people, including myself, find it completely unnecessary to sacrifice such an essential part of what made Halo Halo just for 1080p and 60 frames per second. And if you look way back into the 80s and 90s, you'll see that game developers always cared about the graphics. Because the reason why the graphics look good nowadays is because they had to evolve and make the game look better. But I don't think that graphics will ever be worth a big change of what made a game just because of graphics. And I think we can all agree on that. I think a lot of people enjoy gameplay a lot more than fancy graphics, although it would be best to have both. If that's not possible for the Xbox One, screw it. I don't want the 1080p. I don't want the 60 frames per second. Throw those fucking things away. Let's have split screen back if that's what it takes. I think, I don't know how many of us stand in the same camp, but that's where I stand. In all honesty, we all know that there is a slim chance of all of these features coming back in one game, but that doesn't mean at least a few of them may. So I think that if we all work together as a constructive, focused, non-childish community and tell 343 what we truly want in Halo 6, what we really need, not just a bunch of added fluff, but we need split screen. I think that's a necessity for a lot of us, and that really did screw up a lot of us in our personal plans, and I think that is something that affected us more in Halo 5 than any of the other unnecessary additions or takeaways that Halo 5 had. So guys, let 343 know, and also let me know down in the comment section below, what do you guys think Halo 6 needs? Did you agree with my list? Did you disagree with my list? And by the way, Jacob wrote a lot of this, although I did organize it from 1 to 10, but what did you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section below, and be sure to go to Reddit, Halo Waypoint, or any Halo forum really, or even tweet the people at 343 directly and let them know what you want in Halo 6. We at HaloFollower would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. And of course, guys, I hope everyone takes care, and happy 2017. I'm excited for this year. Let's go. All right, peace, guys. Later.